I know it.
Hey, this is Rick Casselge from exercisesforinjuries.com. I'm over here in New Brunswick at a fitness mastermind meeting, and one of the guys at the meeting is Brad Pilon. So myself and Dan Go are gonna kind of ask Brad a couple questions about what he does. So Dan, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, this is Dan from thefatlossninja.com and 6minutesuperhuman.com, and very glad to be talking to this man right here, who I consider a father of intermittent fasting.
My baby.
Brad, introduce yourself and give a brief background on who you are.
Because that's brief because I like to talk. My name is Brad Pilon. I wrote Eat Stop Eat in 2007. It's been my baby ever since. Eat Stop Eat is my take on how to use intermittent fasting for overall health and weight loss and even weight maintenance once you've lost that weight. So I've been writing that thing and updating it, almost 6-7 years now. Yeah.
But then also your research was done in that. So your research was done in intermittent fasting.
Yeah, so I went back, I did my undergrad work, which is your normal university work in nutrition, studying to be a dietitian. Didn't do that route, finished school and went and worked in the supplement industry for 6 years doing R&D. Got tired of working, went back to school, like all sane people do for a married kid on the way and a mortgage. I quit my job and went back into grad school with the plan of designing the perfect diet, right? So it was going to be like the Pilon diet, it's going to be high protein, multiple meals, etc. But where do you start when you're a cocky kid who thinks he knows everything? And you start by proving that fasting's bad for you, and you build from there. So I started off by saying, okay, I'm going to look into fasting, see what's wrong with it, and I'll build my awesome diet. But what I realized, a lot of what I knew about fasting, I ended up not knowing. So I had to swallow some crow and think, okay, either I can just keep going on with my own personal beliefs, or I can change direction and look into this fasting thing, and that's what I did. So I focused all my studies on fasting in various ways and how it affects the human body, and Eat Stop Eat was born from that.
Cool. Well, one thing I want to ask Brad is the fact of, where exactly is the vision of Eat Stop Eat and where it's going right now? It's almost turned into a movement at this point.
It's interesting, yeah. So fasting itself, and especially the concept of intermittent fasting, not only become really popular, but it's also not a very vague term, right? So there's various forms of intermittent fasting, and everybody's kind of lumping it together. So my vision for Eat Stop Eat is, after the fad of fasting is come and gone, I want Eat Stop Eat to be the way people realize that it's okay to take an occasional break from eating. That you don't have to eat if you're not hungry, but at the same time, even if you aren't hungry, you can eat if you want to. It's sort of regaining control of the concept of eating when you want to eat. A lot of why we eat is based on habits and norms, social responsibilities, right? So you just move as well for lunch. I'm not going to be like, awesome, we're here for lunch, I'll just have a water, right? It's social responsibility and social norms for me for you to eat with you. So part of Eat Stop Eat, what I want people to take from that is the idea that it's okay to eat, but it's also okay to take an occasional break from it. And that's kind of my goal, is just get people back to that level where they're not as restricted or restrained by their food choices and timings, so they know that we're hugely flexible people, right? We can eat kind of when we want, and that time can change depending on what's going on in your life. End goal, that's my vision for Eat Stop Eat. Past all the sort of fasting, bad things going on.
And then looking at the length of time that people shouldn't eat, what length is that? Is it 4 hours, 6 hours, 12 hours, 2 days, 5 days?
So it depends completely on a couple of factors. So my general rule is, the more often you want to fast, the shorter the fast should be. So if you want to fast daily, 12 to 16 hours. You want to fast every other day, 16, 20. 1 to 24. Anything past that, you're 48, 72, you're talking maybe once a month, right? So fasting is a stress on the body, just like exercise. Just like exercise, you need to recover from exercise. There needs to be periods of normal eating. I mean, the goal isn't just to simply go without food for the rest of your life without the sun. Right? So you want to take this pattern interrupt, fast, take a break, your normal eating, then go back to eating for a while. The larger that pattern interrupt, just like the longer your workout, the more stressful your workout, the longer the recovery time you need. So, you can easily handle, most people, a 12-hour fast a day. Obviously, a 24-hour fast every day it's going to be a stress on the body that needs some form. Now, when you think of recovery is a lot like your training, right? So, if you're overweight, you have a lot of excess energy stored on your body. That energy is available for recovery. If you have no fat on, on your body, right? Then now you got to think about the fact that that energy gap you create by fasting but still moving around has to be fed. It's fed through our body. He doesn't have any of that so-called body fat. Your recovery time can be slightly longer, right? Or even how long you want to fast or how often you want to fast, or it's going to change, right? So, an average guy or girl looking to lose weight, maybe fasting twice a week, you're better off with 24-hour fasting once, right? And you just be smart about it that way. So, plan the recovery-based running just like exercise, right? You don't take a fighter who's just getting ready to make weight and be like, all right, we're going to do an awesome 4-hour workout. We know you've got to fight in 2 days, but this will be really fun, the most stressful, intense workout you've ever done, and for some reason I think it's the best time to do it. You don't do that. Towards when you get closer and closer to the fight and you drop weight, and you ease up and work on more technique. So fasting's a stress just like dieting, just like exercising, and you got to manage it.
Yeah, it's also like a mental stress sometimes as well.
The pattern interrupt isn't just the food in your stomach. The pattern interrupt is I'm used to eating at certain times with certain people, certain spots in my life as a response to certain stresses, and now I'm not doing that. I'm relearning it's okay to take a break, right? So pattern interrupt is simply for me fasting. When I fast and my coffee is black, when I'm not, my coffee is creamy. It's a pretty interesting pattern interrupt that sometimes I realize in the middle of fast, I'm like, I really want coffee and cream, and why? Why am I just used to it, this extra calories, or is there something I'm sort of grown to it? So yeah, there's a mental interrupt that you need to deal with as well.
One thing I want to ask is the differences between men and women when it comes to fasting, especially when it comes to women.
Yes.
Because there's like this huge controversy going on. And just tell us about what your findings are in regards to both genders. Yeah.
It's a controversy, it's a good controversy, and I'm glad it was brought up. The issue is turn things around because it isn't the problems that occur with women with fasting when they fast too often, too long, in combination with too much training, not enough recovery. They're the same things that happen to guys. In a sense, the women are kind of lucky because they have some sort of monthly check and balance to know my hormones are slightly messed up, my hormones are not messed up, right? We don't have such an obvious check and balance, but the same thing can happen to us. A guy who's training too much with not enough recovery, with not eating enough, whether it's fasting, whether it's dieting, you name it, they can have the same problems, right? The same drops of testosterone, the same fluctuated, we call them metabolic disturbances. We're not as aware of it, and for some reason as guys, we don't talk about it as much. So the same thing can happen. For women, their hormones actually, depending on which ones, they're more protected against the stresses of fasting. So their thyroid changes, their cortisol changes, etc., are less than that of a guy. The issue comes in with women is not just the fasting, but it's the total level of stress. So they're training, they're fasting, and then they're dieting, right? It's that combination. If you think about a female athlete who has the exact same problem while not purposely dieting, she just literally can't eat up to the level of calories she's spending happens in endurance running cycle to cycle. So when it comes to fasting, you have to remember it's a tool to stress you're placing on your body, just like training. You have to have the proper recovery, right? So when you think of some of the major advocates of like a 16-8 cell fast, they may weight train 3 times every 10-day cycle, right? So me with a twice a week fast, but I weight train 3 or 4 times, but I'm not up there training with that much. That's what I do. I'm also not a professional athlete by any means, right? So you adjust it and balance the stress in your life. So that also includes mental stress that you brought up. So you are training for a Tough Mudder, you're working on your Olympic lifting, you're dieting and you're fasting, and you think you're about to lose your job because there's some politics going down in the office.
And family.
And family. You got to adjust those stresses, right? So maybe you ease up on the diet until you figure out if you got a job or not, or until that family thing and that deadbeat brother who stages his life out, right? You balance that stuff out. And the key is, for all that, remember it's all transient, right? The muscle you build, the fat you have on your body, it comes and goes, right? So don't get worried if you have to take a week off of training, or a week off of fasting, or a week off of dieting, or a week off of work, right? It's always a good idea. So a lot of the stress management, there's no reason to suggest that women can't do intermittent fasting nearly successful as men. There is reason to suggest that women and men need to think of is there are times in my life where different lengths, different times, different recoveries are needed. And at the end of the day, nobody has to fast, right? It's a tool you have in your toolbox that I think is probably less, if done properly, less stressful on the body than dieting. So with eat, stop, eat, for instance, the way I like to do it, it's 1 fast, maybe 2. The rest of the time you're eating at maintenance, right? So that level of stress is gone, as opposed to the low-grade stress level in diet, where you're eating under for extended periods of time. So it's a new approach. It's actually an approach meant to try to balance stresses, that can then be twisted instead of one, 24-hour fast once or twice a week, 24-hour fast somehow it's 9 days a week. Right, you get that approach going on, and then you're like, oh wow, I feel like hell must be the fasting, right? And you're like, well, it must be the way you apply the fasting, right? So just like everything else, this is all stress management. Whether it's fasting, whether it's a new form of training, anything, you balance it. The most important part of training, if you think about it, is recovery. There's no forward progress in any form of training in your life without recovery. So that's what these stuff was set up for, was the big recovery aspect. It makes it, I think, useful for men and women, old, young, overweight. I guess the last point is just for men and women to always remember that the goal is not 0% body. Yeah, you want to look great, but the goal is not 0, right? So sometimes you have to stop looking in the mirror and be like, I look pretty damn good, right? I don't have to keep pushing. Or was it Jim Gaffigan, the comedian? He's like, I go to the gym, I see all these lean people, and I look at him and go, what are you doing here? You're done, right? Sometimes you gotta give yourself permission to kind of back off because you're just about there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So we're gonna cut it short here. It's not short. I mean, Brad's talked for about 10 minutes, but very interesting stuff and kind of a different perspective on the intermittent fasting side of things. So our meetings are, Dave and everyone has kind of arrived, so we're gonna head off into the meetings, and maybe we'll do another continuation of this interview a little bit later. So this is Rick Casellas from exercisesforinjuries.com.
This is Dan from thefatlostninja.com, and
I'm Brad.
Right. So thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon. Take care, and bye-bye.
All right. I did the double thumbs up.
Oh, yeah.